This is the Easy Transit 750 watt folding electric trike from Sixthreezero. That name covers a few of the basic specs and features, but how does it feel and how does it function? Let's go for a ride and find out. Hey everyone, welcome to Electric Bike Report. My name is John. We review electric bikes, trikes, scooters, and more on this channel. So if you're in the market for any of those things, please hit that subscribe button and make sure your notifications are turned on. We release new content a few times a week with the goal of helping you find the best option for your needs and budget. And we're also here to answer any questions you might have. We review far more e-bikes than e-trikes, so you might be wondering what advantages trikes have, and their main attraction is stability. Maybe you're getting a little older and you're finding it tougher to stay balanced on a regular bike. That is where the extra third wheel comes in. But the Easy Transit here takes things a little bit further. First of all trikes run the risk of tipping up on two wheels when turning if you're moving too fast, but this one actually has a really low frame and a low center of gravity to help it stay down on all three wheels. I still had it up on two wheels a couple of times just because I didn't slow down enough, but compared to some of the others I've tested with higher centers of gravity, the Easy Transit felt a bit more firmly planted 90% of the time. The low frame also has the benefit of bringing the standover height down to just 13.5 inches, so if you have a limited range of motion, you don't have to lift your leg up very high to make use of the step-through frame design. Another highlight of this trike is the 750 watt motor that's part of the name. It's a front hub motor that packs some serious power, as you'll see a bit later in our speed and hill test sections. I'm not going to spoil the details, but I will say that we were very impressed with its overall climbing power. As the trike's name also suggests, it does have a folding frame that can reduce its size somewhat for storage or transport in a larger vehicle. Let's quickly run through the rest of the specs and components so I can show you the folding process and then our test results after that. The battery is a 48 volt, 499 watt hour unit that sits behind the seat tube. There's a 7-speed Shimano tourney drivetrain with a 14 to 28 tooth cassette. We weren't familiar with the Woosing brakes, but those are a mechanical system with a 160mm rotor on the rear axle and a 180mm rotor on the front wheel. Also up front, there's a suspension fork with 40mm of travel and a small LED headlight under the wire basket. The rear basket has a lid with a clasp, and there's a battery-operated taillight below that. The trike's total payload capacity, including the rider's weight, is 350 pounds. Moving on though, there are front and rear fenders, and then guards around the back wheels that help to stiffen up the fenders and protect the spokes. The saddle is big and comfortable, and then up in the cockpit, the high-rise handlebars have ergonomic faux leather grips. There's a simple but effective black and white display, an over-the-bar shifter on the right handlebar, and then a cluster of components on the left, including the control panel, thumb throttle lever, and a toggle for switching between forward and reverse modes. That last one is a highly requested feature, so I was really happy to see it here. This cream color is the only option for the Easy Transit, so if you're looking for more variety, you might want to consider the Every Journey trike that we're currently reviewing, but I think they did a nice job matching the rims to the saddle and grips. One last thing, our contact at Sixthreezero told us that the Easy Transit is currently going through the UL certification process, and they expect that to be complete in March of 2024. So if you're seeing this review after that time, there's a good chance it will be certified. With all that out of the way though, let's take a closer look at how the Easy Transit folds. The Easy Transit has a pretty standard set of folding mechanisms with a central hinge in the down tube and a telescoping and collapsing stem. There is one relatively unusual area with the seat post that actually telescopes in 2 areas instead of just 1, but I'll go through the folding process here so you can see what to expect. All right, so there was a little bit of fussing there, but nothing I'd consider abnormal. FYI, you do have to lift up the locking mechanism on the main hinge for it to release. I struggled with that for a while, my first time folding this thing, so hopefully that saves you some time. Another thing to be aware of, I know this is called the Easy Transit, and it is lighter than most of the other trikes we've tested. It's about 80 pounds with the battery and 73 without. But even when it's folded, it is bulky, so I do recommend at least one set of helping hands when you're lifting it. That's all the basics though. Let's dive into our test results and see how the Easy Transit performed. We'll kick things off with our brake test here, where we brought the trike up to its top speed of about 16 miles per hour. We measured how far it traveled as it came to a stop after we hit the brakes, and then we averaged the results of 3 different tests. That average was 17 feet 10 inches, which is longer than we expected based on our tests with other trikes, but there are some big differences with this one. First, the other trikes we've tested have had a slower maximum speed, so this one had a little bit more inertia behind it. Second, the brakes here were one of a few components that weren't quite set properly when we got the trike. Our mechanic went over them, but the rear brake stayed pretty soft after being adjusted. The front one did work just fine though. Based on our experience, you may need to tune things up once you get this trike assembled, and if you're not all that handy, we might recommend taking the Easy Transit to a professional mechanic for assembly so they can get things squared up for you. A higher quality brake system might also be beneficial, but it's possible we just had a dud. Bottom line, the brakes weren't bad, but there were some variables that we couldn't have accounted for here. I give the trike a B+ with those things in mind. I recorded my speed test on the Easy Transit trike so that I could see what the pre-programmed speed limits were in each of the 5 pedal assist settings. Let's go out for a spin to see how it went, and we can also find out how long it took the throttle to reach top speed. All right, so we're here on the Sixthreezero Easy Transit folding trike to do a speed test. And I'm going here with it actually turned off, just by my own leg power, going between 5.5 and 6 miles per hour, something like that. There doesn't seem to be a PAS 0 setting, so we're just using the app for this point in the test. Let's go ahead and turn the bike on, trike, excuse me. And so we're in assist level 1 right away, and it feels pretty subtle, not a lot of power there, but it gave me a little bit of a boost here. I'm gonna shift up a gear. So I'm going kind of right around 6.5, 7 miles per hour. All right, yeah, 7.1. Let's go up to PAS 2. And I'm gonna shift up to 5th gear, maybe 6th, yeah. All right, building, kind of continuing here, but it looks like we're landing kind of between 9.5 and 10 miles per hour. I think I did see 10 on the nose, so let's go ahead and bump up to pedal assist 3. Nice steady increase in power with that. Shift up to 7th gear, which is the maximum. And I'm kind of starting to ghost pedal a little bit, right around 12.5 miles per hour here. So I'm just gonna kind of like relax into that, I guess, as we continue to build some speed. So yeah, 12.8 looks like the max, maybe 12.9. Yep, all right, let's go up to PAS 4. The max speed on this is 16 miles per hour, so I assume that these will kind of balance out between those two settings. We're reaching 15 miles per hour here. Yep, 15 on the nose. Well, 15.3 looks like. So let's go up to PAS 5. And not a whole lot, left to go. So 15.9 looks like about the max. All right, we'll call that our speed test on the Easy Transit folding trike. All right, we are here on the Sixthreezero Easy Transit folding trike for a throttle acceleration test. The max speed is 16, so we'll bring it up to that point and then call it. And 3, 2, 1, go. All right, nice and steady. Picking up quick. And 16. All in all, I think the trike did a great job here. The 7-speed drivetrain made pedaling pretty comfortable without the pedal assist system. I wasn't pushing it all there, so I only hit a max of 6.1 miles per hour, but with the motor engaged, PAS1 felt really subtle and gave me a little boost up to 7.1 miles per hour. The higher settings made much more of a difference. In PAS2, I hit an even 10 miles per hour. In PAS3, that went up to 12.9. PAS4 brought me up to 15.3 miles per hour, and then PAS5 finished things off at 15.9. The differences between PAS1 and PAS4 were all really even, so each setting felt very distinct. I'd have liked for a similar difference between PAS4 and 5, but with the top speed being 16 miles per hour, there just wasn't as much room for that next jump in power. Most of the trikes we've tested have kept things around 14 miles per hour, and I think the Easy Transit can handle the extra speed, but considering that safety is top priority, I think 16 miles per hour is definitely fast enough. The only real point of critique that I have is that the ride could feel a little jerky when I was hitting the 16 mile per hour limit. The motor would back off there, but then kick on again when I got back down to around 15.8, so it felt kind of like a car with a manual transmission. I've tested e-bikes where this was a lot more pronounced, but I'd still encourage the brand to find a way to smooth out the ride. Otherwise, Sixthreezero did a great job with the programming. There's a solid range of speeds, and the low end is really good for getting a feel for the trike's handling. I liked that there was a forward and reverse toggle on the throttle, and I also liked that the motor felt strong, but not too punchy or overpowering. So I give this a A- in this test. We tested the Easy Transit's range by riding it in 2 separate tests until the battery died. We used PAS5 to get a minimum range and PAS2 to get a maximum, assuming that most riders will want a little bit more power than the motor kicks out in PAS1. The trike did pretty well here considering its specs. The bracket of values we measured were 19.2 and 30.2 miles, depending on the pedal assist setting. If you're only using the throttle, you'll probably get a little bit less distance since the motor is doing all the work. Those numbers are on the low end when compared to the other electric trikes we tested, but the Easy Transit was also moving a bit faster than average. It also doesn't have as large of a battery in proportion to the power of its motor, so we weren't too surprised that it ended up on the shorter end of the spectrum. We usually prefer to see a battery capacity with watt hours equal to the nominal wattage of the motor, and the 499 watt hour battery here was a little bit small in relation to the 750 watt motor. Even so, the motor here was surprisingly efficient. We expected to get only about 40 minutes and 10 miles out of the battery in PAS5, but our 19 plus miles and our time of an hour and 31 minutes showed a 90 to 127% increase. I think some folks will definitely prefer the faster than average speeds with this trike, although it's clearly possible to get more distance if you're willing to move a little bit slower. With all of that in mind, I give the Easy Transit an A- in this test, only because of the lower battery capacity. For our hill test, I'll pass you over to Justin. He tested both the throttle and the pedal assist system at our test hill called Hellhole Trail, which has an average grade of 12% over the course of a third of a mile. I'll see you back here afterwards to go over the results.
Okay, here we are on Hellhole with the Sixthreezero trike. And with trikes on these, usually they do surprisingly well. Like, they don't top out super fast, which they shouldn't, because that'd be super dangerous, but a lot of times they're able to climb hills well, and I would argue they need to. They need to be able to take somebody up a hill they can't pedal, or can't put a ton in the pedals. And so right now it's doing pretty well, down to about 9.6 is all through that section there. Holding above 9 pretty solid. So 9.3, 9.5, 9.6, yeah, so bottomed out 9.3 through there. Feels nice and powerful. I don't think it's gonna have a hard time at all getting up the hill. I'll let you listen to this next section and the motor for a second. So yeah, so again, bottomed out right about 9.3 through that steep section. The motor, yeah, has a whine, kind of right about average, I would say, for kind of a rear hub. But definitely if you need to climb up a hill like hellhole on throttle, you know, if you're, say you're injured like that person we just passed, you're not gonna need a pedal, it'll get up here. I feel like it would even do fairly decent with a little bit of weight added onto it. So yeah, we'll take it to the tape and see how it did compared to the other trikes. There's John again. Okay, so we're back out on hellhole and doing the pedal test now with the 630 trike. I'm in 7th gear, and I will tell you, it is easily gonna make it. I'm not ghost pedaling, but I'm like right on the cusp there, right at 11 miles an hour through this turn. Definitely feels like it could use an 8th, a 9th, and a 10th gear if it's pedaling this easy up on a hill. So I've got the seat lowered, so I'm not getting full extension. I could raise it a little bit, but again, most people that I see riding trikes have the seat lowered. With mobility issues, etc., that's to be expected. So I wanted to give you an idea of what it's like to pedal without that full extension. It's very easy, right? So through this section here, last steep climb, not having to push hardly at all, and it, you know, bottomed out 9.7. My guess is I'm going to start to ghost pedal here. Yeah, so just starting to ghost pedal just a little bit, even climbing. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely going to climb hellhole. We'll see how it compares to the other trikes. But I'm pretty much purely ghost pedaling right now, going 14.4 miles per hour. And as long as you're turning the cranks, it'll just keep giving power. So yeah, let's see how it did.
I'm not going to keep you waiting. Those are some of the best results we've seen from a trike, although it is worth noting that the trikes we've tested previously have all varied quite a bit in their specs. With the throttle, Justin finished the test in 1 minute and 35 seconds with an average speed of 11.4 miles per hour, and in the PAS5 test, he shaved a couple seconds off with a time of 1 minute and 33 seconds and a speed of 11.7 miles per hour. The big contributing factor in this case is very simply the power of the 750 watt motor, which seems to be a little bit less common on an electric trike, at least in our experience. The Easy Transit's motor is made by a brand called Truck Run, which we aren't too familiar with, but it has a peak output of 70 newton meters of torque and 1,170 watts, which is higher than any of the other e-trikes we've tested. I took the Easy Transit to our secondary test hill near the office and had a very similar experience to Justin's. I wouldn't call this a rocket, which is a good thing, but it felt steady and it kept a speed of around 12 miles per hour, which isn't something I can say for many of the bikes I've tested. Bottom line, you have nothing to worry about if you're not able to pedal, and even if you do choose to add some of your own effort to what the motor is doing, you're not going to have to work very hard. I think that earns this trike a very solid A+ in this test. Ride quality is a pretty subjective thing, but there are a few key components that make a big difference. Let's go out one more time on the Easy Transit and talk about the basics, and then we can come back here to go a little bit deeper. All right, we are back here on the 630 Easy Transit 750 watt folding electric trike to talk about its ride quality. And there's a very upright riding position here that I think is really comfortable and also has really nice visibility, so I can see everything that's going on around me. There's a single frame size here, but this trike fits a pretty wide range of people from 4'6" all the way up to 6'5", with about 14 inches of adjustment in the saddle height, with a sort of dual telescoping seat post system, and then also a 4.5-inch telescoping stem that gives you adjustability over your handlebar height. But then also with these sort of high-rise chopper style handlebars, you can loosen up that stem and rotate the angle of those to adjust your reach. So I have that set, fairly close to me at the moment, and it's really nice and easy. There's a small suspension here on the front. Don't know if it's doing a whole lot, just because I don't have a lot of weight on the handlebars, but maybe for someone taller, leaning over and putting a bit more weight there, that would make more of a difference. The tires here are 16-inch by 2.125 street tires, and with wheels of that size, the Easy Transit here has a pretty low center of gravity, so it feels really stable and balanced, and just really well planted when you're riding. And then last thing we'll talk about is the motor here. So I'm going to bump up to PAS 5 actually, and kind of coast. And I'll move the pedals so we can see how fast the motor re-engages. We'll do that now. Okay, so a little bit of a delay there. It takes about I think half turn of the cranks for it to really engage, and then a little bit longer for you to actually feel the intensity building. And then you have a 7-speed drivetrain to kind of help you get moving with that. So let's call it there, and we'll bounce back to the studio and wrap things up. I don't normally lead with an overall evaluation, but I think this one requires a little bit more explanation than usual. I'm going to give the Easy Transit a B for ride quality because I've tested other trikes that had a more refined feel to the ride, but I think my overall experience here was better than I expected based on the build. There's no question that this trike can fit one of the widest ranges of riders we've ever seen. I'm 5'11", and I felt really comfortable with the saddle height and stem set somewhere in the middle of their adjustment range, so there was a ton of room left on both the higher and shorter end of the spectrum. I mentioned that I wasn't sure the suspension fork was really adding anything to the ride, and I think there were a couple of unusual choices with that. First, I think a suspension seat post would be more impactful here, so I was happy to see that Sixthreezero offered one in the accessories section of their website, and I recommend adding that. But also, we noticed that the front basket was actually mounted to the crown of the suspension fork, so any cargo in the basket will compress the fork and make it less effective. It might help to keep your gear from bouncing around, but it seemed counterintuitive for the comfort of the rider. I want to circle back to something Justin said in the hill test about ghost pedaling though. I agree that an extra gear or two would be nice, but I also want to point out that there are plenty of single speed trikes out there where you don't even have the option to shift, and I was happy to see the 7-speed drivetrain here. In lower pedal assist settings, you can make use of the gearing if you want to pedal, but you can also just as easily enjoy the ride with the throttle or by just turning the pedals with little to no resistance in PAS 5. My testing of the Easy Transit was a pretty interesting process. Based on my initial impressions, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from it, but I think in the end it did a lot better than I expected, and that's always nice to be able to say at the end of a review. Let's recap all the big points from our testing. First, there's a diverse and well-balanced set of pedal assist levels. Second, the trike can cover a practical amount of ground on a single charge, while also moving at a reasonable speed. Third, the brakes needed some tuning up, but they did the job. And finally, the motor didn't really even break a sweat when we climbed a couple of super steep hills. We'd like to see Sixthreezero improve their QC process before items ship out, so the trike could be reliably ready to ride once it's assembled, and we'd prefer smoother motor output when topping out at the 16 mph mark. But otherwise, I think there's a reasonable amount to appreciate here, from big things like the overall stability of the ride, down to smaller things like the reverse throttle option. It's also great to see a lighter trike that can fold down to take up a little bit less space, although again, it's probably a good idea to have an extra set of hands for lifting. If you want to take a closer look at the Easy Transit folding trike, we ask that you please use the link down in the video description. That's especially important if you decide to make a purchase, as it helps us to keep making thorough reviews like this one, and it won't cost you anything extra. To read more about our testing, we'll leave another link to our written review, but thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, drop us a line, and share this review with your friends. I'll see you in the next one. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Easy Transit 750 watt folding electric trike.